This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Welcome to Boomer Life on CL 615. I'm Joanne Sutton. Today we're speaking with Jim Doyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group Financial Services. So are you where you want to be financially? A well-thought-out plan for your financial future is an integral part of building the life that you want for both yourself and for your family. So Jim is speaking today on opening the lines of communication and the benefit of taking the time to review your finances, whether you're single or with your partner, and for those of you with children, discussing this with your family. So Jim, is it possible you can give us the Coles Notes version of where to start and how to tackle this?
I'll start with what I know best. When I take on a client relationship, I like to know who are the other professional advisors and where things are, like the wills, especially if there's multiple wills. Want to know where the trust documents are, power of attorney, a representation agreement, shareholders agreements, the life insurance and other insurance policies, and other pertinent documents.
That's a lot of documents to be aware of. Multiple wills, trust documents, power of attorney, representation, life insurance. Wow, the list just goes on.
I know, and this is where having a financial advisor can help smooth out the process. They know which rocks to lift and look under, so to speak, and it's important to keep in mind that there might be other key advisors in the picture, such as an accountant or an insurance agent or other investment advisors, or sometimes a family lawyer might also be involved.
So we've not only got the bank and financial advisors to be aware of, but we have the accountant, the insurance agent, investment advisor, and possibly family lawyers. This is a lot of information. It's a lot to absorb. So just in case you need a hand, this is a great time. I'm just going to say, if you find yourself in this situation, let me give you Jim's number to add to that pile of information. You might need it. Keep it handy. 604-682-5431. 682-5431. So many Canadians have an idea of what we want retirement to look like. But for many, the dream just doesn't seem to live up to the reality. So let's talk about, what if our parents don't have an estate plan or a will? That could be a good place to start.
An estate planning lawyer can help assist on drafting a will or help with more complex estate planning issues such as trusts. Some of the hardest work, though, can be just to get people to do it. Some people are superstitious, feeling something bad will happen if they start planning. Others have unresolved family issues that make it difficult to figure out how they want their wishes to be addressed. I get that.
Well, it's like having that conversation about life. You need to have the conversation about death as well. So do you think many people are maybe just intimidated by the thought of having that will drafted?
Well, I look upon this. Wills are about a living document and also about the next stage of things. Okay, I'm a TEP, which is a registered trust and estate practitioner. I don't draft wills, but I often help start the conversations, and that's the key. One of my strengths is that I often understand the practical side of what is being considered and can arm you with talking points to bring up with your legal professional with easy to understand language.
Wow. If I can say that I've learned anything from being in conversation with Jim Doyle, it's that understanding the concepts we're about to wrestle with is really the first step towards accomplishing our goals.
Exactly. Understanding is key. Planning is key, and one of the key conversations we have in almost every client relationship is the importance of having current wills and an effective power of attorney in place. You know, we've seen people over the years trying to save a little money by downloading a power of attorney form off the internet, but I really have to believe that sometimes you get really what you pay for.
Well, I think this is great information too, and it's probably not a conversation I would have expected to have with my financial advisor. So what I'm hearing now is I don't think it's enough just to get the power of attorney forms done. It's much more than this. This is what I believe. Adult kids who have been appointed are overwhelmed by the understanding of their rights, their roles, or their responsibilities.
I see a lot of this. And to complicate matters a little further, many of the banks have their own power of attorney forms, and bank staff may be apprehensive to use a power of attorney drawn up by a law firm or notary, preferring to deal with their own bank power of attorney forms.
So what's the actual difference between the power of attorney that you can get with your bank and the power of attorney documents you'd have drafted up by a lawyer or a notary?
Well, I'm sure your lawyer will say this as well, but the bank power of attorney deals with matters that pertain to the bank, nothing else. Not your home, your taxes, your insurance, your investment, or pensions.
Wow. It's good to know that you might experience some inconvenience when dealing with your bank, when dealing with your lawyer drafted power of attorney as well.
To be fair, the banks really are much more comfortable with their own forms, but that might always serve you best. What is key is to understand what you can do and what you cannot do with any of these forms. And keep in mind, if your parent or loved one isn't already working with an estate planner or lawyer, ask your financial advisor for a reference and consider accompanying your parent to that first meeting with a prospective lawyer. Of course, if your parent is comfortable with that.
You mean having your parent write out their wishes on a piece of paper and just sticking it in a safety deposit box is not really good enough?
You might want to get a little bit more help with that.
A little more help. Well, Jim, it's been great advice so far. It can actually be quite daunting to speak about these things that are a little uncomfortable or confusing. So you've given us some very powerful suggestions.
When attending this meeting with the client, their parents and the lawyer, I recommend letting your parents direct the conversation. Let them discuss their wishes, and you can support them by just listening and maybe taking some notes. Keep in mind that we want to avoid the appearance of undue influence from the child, so your parent should have a private, one-on-one discussion with their legal advisor as well.
Actually, that's a great idea. It allows for that, like a certain level of dignity.
And remember, it's important that parents communicate with family members what their intentions are for their current investments and ultimately their estate plans when they have all of their faculties. Ideally, you've got this paperwork sorted out well before a parent reaches this stage. Your enduring power of attorneys are for finances, and a representation agreement may help with medical care and allow a person or of a parent's choosing to act on his or her place in the event of mental incapacity.
Well, I know this is maybe not the friendliest topic, but what happens in a situation where no action has been taken to secure proper legal documentation or direction?
This is an unfortunate circumstance which can be avoided through proper planning. If there's no legal documentation in place, a doctor will generally need to vouch that the parent is incapacitated or unable to make their own decisions, and this is where the courts can become involved. The legal process can be arduous. When it comes to working with professionals, while an aging parent is still competent, it can be a good idea to keep mom or dad's financial advisors informed of any major medical developments that have a direct bearing on financial issues, provided the parent approves, so that the advisor can help plan accordingly.
So what I'm hearing is that essential conversations need to take place between advisors and clients. It's yet another area of essential conversation that seems to get less attention is that of money and families. It's a sensitive subject and one that families often need a helping hand to explore in some level of detail.
Well, just look at your own situation, the number of accounts and passwords that you have. I think many people are easily surprised just how many they have, and it's an easy chore to put off.
I can actually think of a few things that might be more fun.
Last fall, I sat down with a family that had finally decided to get things organized. After multiple years of urging, they finally had their wills, enduring power of attorney, and representation agreements completed. What I hadn't counted on was the boxes and boxes of financial records that they couldn't figure out what to do. There were stock share certificates, multiple uncashed checks, decades of investment, insurance, and tax records.
So was it an advantage that both parents were actually still alive?
It really was. And while their memories might not have been as sharp as they once might have been, they were able to offer valuable insights, which were quite helpful in making some of the process less daunting.
So the point here is it's never too late. So, Jim, how did you actually go about helping this family?
Well, the first thing we did was look at which checks were still cashable. Then we started the arduous task of contacting each of the check issuers to see if a replacement could be issued. A number of these companies had since gone out of business or changed their bank or business names. The next thing we did was enlist the help of our securities specialist to see which of the stock certificates were still active. For many of those stocks, they hadn't paid out the dividends that they should have paid because they no longer had the client's current address.
Oh my gosh, sounds like a bit of a nightmare to me.
Once we got all the outstanding dividends paid, the valid stock share certificates into an account, and the checks cashed, we worked with their tax providers to amend a number of prior tax returns. That took a little more time and effort and paperwork than I thought it would, but we got it all resolved.
Well, I can see why they might have wanted to leave this task for someone else to handle.
At points, it was more like an Easter egg hunt. I got a sense from the clients that the problem had been compounding for decades. Once they reached a point where they weren't sure where to start, they felt helpless. What was all the more surprising was they'd been working with other advisors decades before we came onto the picture. And when I asked why didn't they bring these items to them, they said it simply hadn't occurred to them that they could.
Oh my. So does this story actually have a happy ending?
I'd like to think so. We helped the client recover tens of thousands of dollars. It wasn't really that much money for them because they really were quite well off. But the sense of relief of lifting this off their shoulders, that was priceless. The other bonus was that the kids were quite happy they weren't going to have to take this task on at some point in the future when perhaps their parents were no longer here.
I think that's a happy ending as well. You're listening to Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. Today we're speaking with Jim Doyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group. If you count yourself amongst those concerned about ways you can make your savings last, well, then maybe it's time you give Jim a call. You can reach him at 604-682-5431. Or better yet, a chance to come and meet Jim Doyle in person with his team. They'll be at Van Dusen Gardens Tuesday, April 26th from 6:30 p.m. till 8 o'clock p.m. Jim's going to be hosting a workshop where you can actually find out whether your retirement standard of living is at risk or not. He's going to be addressing a number of tough planning issues like health and wealth and also having some TFSA information. To learn how Jim can help you with your financial situation, we've given you an opportunity to meet him. You can phone him or you can also email Jim at jim.doyle@investorsgroup.com. Or the number once again, 604-682-5431. There's still a lot more to come with Jim Doyle as we discuss how helping out the kids financially could be seriously harming your retirement. We'll also give you some tips about what you can do about it. That's next on Boomer Life on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.